Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rukal Kadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who teach us truth and sincerity. And a shout out to Yakim that's out there in four corners of the earth proclaiming this truth. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rukal Kadash, Brakatum. And so, we're talking about Asher here, who's about to go to war with Esau Edom. And, in fact, Magog is being a guard now unto them as well. As you can see, Lavrov and Pompeo discussed Venezuela crisis over the phone. And pretty much what's happening is Magog is telling them you cannot attack a sovereign country, pretty much standing up to the beast, to the United States, because there are certain UN NATO countries that would love to grab Venezuela as well, but some of them are with Russia. So you can see that the beast, that these nations are beginning to hate the whore, as some of them are already with the U.S. biggest enemy, which is Russia, Magog. So anyhow, I'm just going to let this video play here.
Presidential elections, while Moscow condemns all attempts at a foreign intervention. The Russian foreign minister said the U.S. document could serve as a pretext for a military invasion. Sergei Lavrov and the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo have discussed the situation in a phone call. Now, we spoke with Miguel Tinker Salas, a professor of Latin American Studies, who says any pretense of this crisis being a democratic process happening in Venezuela is utter nonsense.
Unfortunately, I think that Washington will continue on its current course of action. This has become an ideological issue for them. When you have amassed Marco Rubio, you have Mike Pompeo, you have Mr. John Bolton, and now Elliot Abrams directing foreign policy in Washington, essentially taking over the function of the State Department. We are essentially embarked on a course of regime change. The U.S. has embarked on this course previously. Since Hugo Chavez was elected in 1998, the U.S. has sought regime change across 3 different governments, Bush, Obama, and now Trump. And unfortunately, I don't think that the Pompeo minister will listen to Lavrov's comments and will continue to see an escalation of conflict in the context of Venezuela versus the U.S.
And that's all that the whore does, is seeks out regime changes. But there's more. Now getting into Yemen, which is another country that has been destroyed by Amalek, because, of course, this is really about a war with Persia, which is being a guard now unto Yemen, because these Amalekites that control Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Qatar, well, they've always wanted Yemen as their own, so they could control that whole peninsula. And they control many parts of Iraq and Syria. And in fact, Iraq wants the whore out of there, but the U.S. is going to stay in there anyways. Well, of course they are, because you already saw Donald Trump go up there, because the Iraqi government did not even welcome Donald Trump. They didn't want to see Donald Trump, so Donald Trump had to go into the U.S. military base. So here's more about the real reason why Amalek, which is using the whore, United States, to keep Yemen. And yes, U.S. troops are in Yemen, just as they are in Syria. You can best believe that.
We thank Scott Ritter for the interview. No decision, no discussion, by the way, about this U.S. being spread out so thin militarily is complete without taking into account our dedication, if not devotion, to Saudi Arabia. And by the way, when it comes to Saudi Arabia, the war in Yemen is always at the forefront. It's a war for which there has been little to no accountability for the hundreds of thousands of children that have been slaughtered.
Who are Amalekites.
We are very much...
You know about the split between Ukraine...
I want to show you something.
You know, which Ukraine goes back to Ashkenazi.
I want to show you the area that's most affected, right? Because there's a place here that's called the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. It is right in here. You see where Djibouti is and you see where Yemen is, interestingly enough. Now, you can imagine all the oil that has to pass through this area to get through, which is what makes that particular place so important, right? 4.8 million barrels of oil passing through this narrow passageway just about every day. And now we're told the real reason for the war in Yemen is a religious conflict between Shia Houthis and the Sunnis, or the Saudis.
That's what those Amalekites would like you to believe.
When in actuality, it's all about the oil.
Yep.
Here is our correspondent, Michelle Greenstein, with more.
Same reason they're in Syria.
One of Washington's strategic objectives is to maintain control over any major seaway, and Bab el-Mandeb is designated by the U.S. Department of Energy as a major oil transit choke point. But here's where it gets interesting. There's also the issue of the untapped oil of Yemen itself. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, Yemen has proven oil reserves of about 3 billion barrels. A U.S. Geological Survey from 2002
that's what Persia and Amalek are
assesses that
fighting
when
about.
undiscovered potential is added to known reserves, the total petroleum resource endowment for Yemen rises to 9.8 billion barrels of oil equivalent. But the petroleum that Yemen
If
sits on
Amalek
has yet to
could
be fully
get into
explored.
Persia,
For this
they would
reason,
take parts
there
of
may
it
be
just
more
like they
at stake
did with the
under
Golan
Yemen
Heights of
than we
Syria.
previously thought. Take a look at the CIA report from 1988.
And they were hoping to do that with
Although
Iraq.
it's filled with redactions and was only declassified in part, it suggests that South Yemen alone, which was its own country at the time, has an oil potential of 5 billion barrels. Not only does the CIA write that South Yemen's potential recoverable oil resources could be considerably larger than its estimate, they also write that deposits of oil and gas probably exist in the newly created neutral zone along the disputed border between North Yemen and South Yemen. According to economic expert Hassan Ali Al-Saneri, the scientific research and assessments conducted by the international drilling companies show that Yemen's oil reserves are more than the combined reserves of all the Persian Gulf states.
So there you go. Yemen has even more resources than the places they're trying to steal from Syria. And of course over here, more uproars of the people, because most people, after the government shutdown, they hate this motherfucker, you know, and even though the media paints it that everybody loves Trump, they don't, you know. That is fuck news, and, you know, Chris Green and all them make it look like Donald Trump is the greatest. But that's not what the people be saying.
A key congressional committee having investigating the U.S. president, announcing that Donald Trump faces numerous allegations of corruption and obstruction of justice. House Judiciary Committee says it's hiring 2 outspoken lawyers who have urged Trump's indictment and impeachment. Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler says that the investigation could prove a critical point in the history of the U.S. Moved by the Democrat-controlled House could signal the committee does not plan to wait for special counsel Robert Mueller to complete his legal case against the president. Trump has repeatedly rejected allegations against him. Joining us now out of New York for more on the story is Sandra Hicks, investigative journalist. Hello, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. Now, Mr. Hicks, you know, President Trump calls all these things a witch hunt against him. How do you interpret this? Is this a witch hunt, which he purports all the time, or is this really a bona fide, initiative that could lead to his impeachment now?
Yeah, well, I think actually it's a good thing for the American people that there are 2 new attorneys being appointed by a House committee. It's not a witch hunt. It's just due process of law. This is the most criminal president that we've had since George W. Bush.
So how far do you think this will go, and which one do you think will come out ahead, this investigative process or Mueller's quest?
Well, Robert Mueller has a bad track record. He presided over the 9/11 cover-up and the run-up to the Iraq War and all of the criminality of the deep state in America. So I don't have too much confidence in Mueller. But the House is now controlled by Democrats. The country is swinging to the left. A lot of progressives and democratic socialists now are able to win and hold elected office. There's more women. There's more minorities. We have...
See, this is a slideshow, you know. Democrats, Republicans, and all that. When you know that these elites control both sides of the party, you know. But nonetheless, though, this is part of the dog and pony show. Because, as you know, it's election year. Now, in other things, we've been watching this one very closely as to whether there'll be another government shutdown or not. Well, for right now, it won't be over this, but you can best believe, though, that, you know, they say that they've averted a shutdown. Well, maybe this time, but World War III is ineffable, so really nothing's really averted. It's just that there's a time and a place that it's going to happen. It just may not happen when you think it is. It's going to happen when you least expect it. Nonetheless, though, it looks like they have some sort of a deal here.
Reached an agreement in principle between us on the Homeland Security and the other 6 bills. Our staffs are going to be working feverishly to put all the particulars together, and that's all we can tell you now. We're not getting into numbers and everything, but it's something that is a product of all of us' work, and we believe if this becomes law, of course it will open the government.
Well, and that's just it, though. You haven't really averted anything. But, hey, you know, while you're losing status quo, yeah, the other people that you protect, Amalek, well, they're getting slammed for their recent actions against Syria.
Members of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet said he is using the army to boost his electoral campaign ahead of next general elections in April, after he declared his responsibility over the latest Israeli air attack against Syria. Netanyahu claimed that his forces hit targets, including a hospital and an observation center in Syria's southern province of Quneitra. He made the remarks last night before boarding a plane to the Polish capital Warsaw to attend the US-backed anti-Iran conference, which was boycotted by the Palestinians and European countries like Germany and France.
Netanyahu believes that he can spread his meddling fingers in the region while trying to appeal to the international community as a man of peace. But we say clearly that this is a man of war and that his actions will not bring stability or calm to the region. The only way is to end the occupation completely and allow the establishment of a Palestinian state.
Netanyahu's critics said he is likely trying to run away from accountability and the corruption scandals he's facing, given that the Attorney General Avichai Mendelblit rejected a demand to postpone his indictment report till after the April's elections.
Israel has given up on the vagueness policy when it comes to its attacks on Syria and Lebanon and is speaking out loud about that. This means that Netanyahu is clearly trying to evade public opinion from his corruption files and internal crises. Instead, he's using the military attacks as a card in his campaign to appear as if he's the only one in control.
Observers say that Netanyahu is trying to take several extremist steps ahead of elections to win more illegal Israeli settlers and right-wingers' votes, including advancing the prisoner's family allocations deduction law next week and reportedly timing the evacuation of Al-Khan al-Ahmad community to serve his campaign. Given his power, Netanyahu is apparently drawing the attention of his critics by exploiting his early electoral campaign and exploiting his multiple positions and his weight in the regime.
So you can see, though, that pretty much they're taking proverb against him, too. His own people, them gutter rats, don't like him either. Don't you see how both the whore and Amalek go hand in hand? The Israeli state and the United States? Joel chapter 3, starting in verse 7. Behold, I will raise them out of the place whither you have sold them, and will return your recompense upon your head. Us coming to the realization that we're the real Israelites is now pretty much, this is what's happening, is we are speaking this on the streets. Verse 9, proclaim this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men of war. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. And that's what's happening now. They're taking a proverb against you. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there I will sit to judge the heathen round about. And that's what's happening now, is this battle's about to go down. And it's going to be a third woe With that, I want to say Brakat Yahweh, Brakat Yahweh Shai, Bashem Rakal Kadash, Brakat Tum. Hope this has been edifying. Death to America, death to you 2/3.